Hi, welcome to Enter the Bunker, where we launch you into thriving. Each week we talk about a different virtue that can be used as a building brick to build your own personal bunkers. We share personal stories, as well as tips and tricks to help you thrive instead of survive. So sit down, relax, and enter the bunker.
Hello, and welcome to Enter the Bunker for part 2 of this building brick acceptance. How to be more accepting. My name's Kelly.
And I'm Jonathan.
We're going to go over 3 ways. First one, practice acceptance. 2, don't be apathetic. And 3, allow things to be.
Okay.
I think that's my favorite one. We'll get to find out.
Let's find out.
Number 1, practice acceptance. Acceptance is an active process. You have to work at it continuously. It may take a lot of effort, but like anything else that you work at, the more you do it, the better you will be at it. Practice makes perfect. However, it is important to think about what you are accepting and whether you want that to be how it always is. Blind acceptance quickly become apathy. Blind acceptance, I feel like, is that, kind of talked about that different in another building brick where we're very willing. Somebody asks you to do something, you don't think about it. You're just like, yep, I'll do that. That's not really acceptance, though.
So blind acceptance can quickly become apathy, sort of like what we talked about in our last show, where if you keep being told, oh, just accept yourself for the way you are, then you become apathetic to changing the way you are, believing that, so I should just, I'm okay, being this way. And it's okay for this. It's okay for that. And then suddenly you become apathetic to improving yourself. Right. That's just one example.
Okay.
Right. But blind acceptance comes from just not being conscious about what you're accepting. Our brains, the way our minds work, we really like everything around us and that we're taking in, that we're hearing and seeing and whatnot is always being taken in by our brain. Right. And what you plant is what you reap, right?
Right.
So if you're constantly looking at things that are, we'll say violent, for example, then your brain is going to be just taking that in like produce violence, right? Unless you're able to make a conscious decision to not accept that, then you would turn away and stop looking at it, right? And stop feeding your brain that, right? And then you'll start feeding your brain good stuff because your mind is like a fertile garden and whatever you plant in it will grow. That's the way it works. Right. And so if we're like doing things like listening to Enter the Bunker and and doing things to constantly be improving ourselves or we're focused on that as what we accept as what we should be practicing, then that becomes more of what happens in our lives. But if we are passive about it, if we just blindly accept whatever comes to us because of whatever's being thrown at us, especially in this kind of like advertising world, social media world, where you're literally being bombarded with propaganda of every kind, that's just like telling you to believe this and telling you should do that, then you're going to quickly become so you'll feel so out of control. And you will just become apathetic to where you're almost like a zombie, You're
just living life day by day.
Yeah, and you just
no goals, no motivation.
And so the idea of just sort of creating a filter that says like, wait, I'm not going to accept that. Like I'm not going to be apathetic about accepting everything, and I'm going to start focusing on this because this is what I should accept. Then that becomes the difference in terms of practicing acceptance, which is what we're talking about here. Like this is the one thing, like one of the things that you should be doing in order to be able to practice acceptance in a way that's healthy, that's going to make you grow, right?
The healthy
builds the building brick.
Yeah, you want to build it.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 2, don't be apathetic. Apathy is the difference between accepting your current circumstances and being happy with your current situation. Practicing acceptance does not mean you cannot work to change things. It simply means that you don't hold any animosity towards the situation, but you recognize that it isn't what you want it to be and you need to work. So kind of like, again, what we were just talking about too, like where it goes lower. Um, simply means that you don't recognize. That's like, I feel like that's the definition of acceptance.
Yeah, but it's really,
It's recognizing what it is. And
well, let's go back to your hair example.
okay.
I would say that that's the don't be apathetic part.
Okay.
I think that's a good example of where you shouldn't be apathetic in your acceptance.
Right.
Because
That's true. Because I know that I'm happy as I am. And I know that I'm going to eventually get my hair done. So I know all that. So I'm accepting and I know that I have that goal to go towards it. But the way I came off to say it, I was just like, I don't care what people think about me.
Right.
I feel like grossed out that I even said it like that. I feel like mortified in myself almost just because I'm like, that's not acceptance at all.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
So you need to, but then now it's just like you it's like, well, that's not acceptance at all,
No.
and that is actually a sign of apathy.
Yeah.
So nip that in the bud.
Yeah.
Like don't
Yeah.
be apathetic towards things that towards things like this, because that's the difference between accepting your current situation and actually being happy with your current situation.
Right.
Right. So you need to understand the difference and not be apathetic towards those things.
Yeah.
Anytime you catch yourself doing that, again, to me, it's like trying to create that shield that keeps you in where you are, and that doesn't allow you to be able to grow.
No, not at all.
You just become apathetic, like we're talking about now, and then just don't do anything.
Yeah, my mind won't. Because I could just simply just put it a different way. I'm like, yeah, I definitely plan on getting my hair done. I really want to do this first, and my goal is to get it done in a couple months.
Yeah.
Bam.
And that goes back to number one we just talked about, practicing acceptance, because now you're focusing on the thing that you want. So now what's going to happen is now in your mind's going, oh, start making those plans.
Yeah.
And then starts putting things in motion to like, okay, let's get that done.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's fun. Okay. Number 3, allow things to be. Everyone's on their own path. Allow people to follow their own path, except they have a different path than you. Maybe these paths run parallel. Maybe they cross, then diverge. But by letting everyone stick to their own path, it allows everyone to change, grow, and learn to be on their own. Open your eyes to other possibilities and accept there are many ways for things to be. Who knows? You may find a different path than the one you're on. Maybe when you're crossing that parallel path, you'll be like, oh, I'm on a different path.
Exactly. Yeah. This is something that is a challenge for a lot of people, simply because we live in our own worlds, right? Everything we see and everything we do, it's an experience that we're having through ourselves.
Right.
So when we look at other people, there's a tendency for us to like really, even if we've had the same experience, we may share our experience, but then to be in such a way that you don't allow them to be able to go on their own path. Like you insist, it's like, this is how you have to do it.
Yeah.
Right. That is not helpful at all.
No.
Right. They need to do things for themselves. It could be something completely different than what you went through. And that's just how they're going to grow. You know, it's like, can you imagine a garden where every single plant or flower grew exactly the same way? It doesn't happen, right? It just doesn't. So you have to understand that everybody else is growing in different ways.
Yeah.
And so,
kind of reminds me of like my mom, like parenting and me being as a kid. I'm never going to tell my kid no, because I thought I was going to parent differently. But now, obviously, I still do. But there are some things that I took and some things that I left behind.
Yeah, it was a different path.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And so the challenge then for your mom at that point is just like, does she accept the way that you're doing it?
It's tough as a parent. And I'm realizing that now, being a parent, but watching, because and then you talk to them about being a parent. And she's like, it was so hard watching you do this. And like, but she had to accept it because you grow up and you have to like let people soar eventually, right?
That's right.
Yeah. You also brought me back to another thing. I always tell my kids, because they'll be like, oh, so-and-so's doing this. I'll be like, well, you're not so-and-so.
Yeah.
Like, that's a tough one. Maybe, I don't know. Like, you're not, like, the whole, back to my parents again, like, would you jump off a bridge? And I'd be like, well, if I had a bungee cord attached to me, I would. Like, I know I was the sassy little girl, so I always came up with something. And my oldest is the same way. So, like, he always comes up with something, and I'm just like, how do you explain that to them? Like, yeah, that's a tough one. Anyways, so that's acceptance. Anything else?
Well, to your point about how do you bring them, how do you deal with that sort of thing? I'd say that again, it comes down to what we're talking about here. Allow things to be the way they are and allow them to go on their own path. It's just like, if they're trying to compare themselves to somebody else, just say, well, that's their path. What's yours?
Right.
You know, have them reflect on like, am I going to be exactly like everybody else, or am I going to be my own person?
Right. That's a better idea. And then maybe get them to come up with their own thing that they can do.
And they should come up with their own thing. Right. So we're all going to grow in different ways. We're not, you know, completely alien to each other, obviously. We learn from other people's experiences. There's wisdom in that. Yeah. But we need to be able to, we need to be able to not be projecting on other people our expectation that they follow the same path we do.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I think some people feel, or they have a sense of like, it's almost like lonely if they don't have others doing the same things they do. There's a sense of social consensus that they like if they can get others to do the same as them. But at the end of the day, you really need to be accepting of allowing that it's just going to turn out differently than you expect.
Exactly.
Right? So
let it go.
Let it go.
Thank you for listening to Enter the Bunker. Make sure to follow us on Instagram, where you can share your story and also look at behind the scenes of how we make our podcast. You can watch the video version of this podcast on YouTube by simply searching Enter the Bunker. Tune in next time as we launch into thriving.